Welcome back, everybody, and most importantly, Happy New Year. I hope you had a relaxing break because we are on the FCAT season, as I call it, and we'll be working really hard all the way up to FCAT. As you know, we've been working at topic 7, and we have been building up to adding and subtracting fractions. But before we can do that, we have to learn about simplifying fractions. So I have one question for you. Do you prefer a candy bar or pizza? I know, that's a tough question. I'm not sure I could decide. Depends on the day and how hungry I am. So, because it's hard to decide, we're actually going to represent both when we're talking fractions. Our first fraction we're going to talk about is our pizza fraction. And we are going to write this like this. Now, you're going to have to dig way back to 3rd grade because this is where you learned how to write a fraction that is represented by that picture right there. Alright, so if you see 2 shaded parts, you have 2 out of 4 shaded. Alright, if you are a candy bar person, you might have it look like this. Okay, and you would have it shaded in here, and shaded in here, and this would still be 2/4. Okay, so half of it is pretty much gone. However, when we're talking about simplifying fractions, we are not changing the amount of shaded area we have. Okay, so the shaded area is not going to change. What's going to change is we are going to change the size of the pieces. Let me demonstrate. Alright, notice what I did on our pizza. I took out one of the lines. So how would I write this fraction now? You guessed it. I now only have 1 shaded part out of 2. So we start off with 2/4. We took out one of the lines. We changed the size of the pieces. But did we change the amount of shaded area? No, it's still the same amount. I didn't change that. So 2/4 is the same as writing 1/2. You're just simply renaming. You are renaming the fraction. Right? The shaded area does not change. Just like if I did here. Now watch, you're going to watch me take away the lines. Hopefully this is showing up on your video. Okay, if I take away that line, and I take away that line, what fraction is left? You guessed it, 1/2. So 2/4 is the same as 1/2. The shaded area never changed. What changed was the size of the pizza and the candy bar. Alright? So how does this affect what you're doing today? Let's say we have the fraction 12/20. Alright, we are simply, I'm not going to draw this because it would take forever for me to draw a pie piece and cut it into 20 pieces, and to take a candy bar and cut it into 20 pieces. It would take me a really long time. So instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to deal with 12/20. One way that I can change this or give it a new name is I can either divide it by the same number. So when you're renaming a fraction, you can divide it. Whoops, that's not divided. That's messed up. Divide it or multiply it by a number. Alright, so if I wanted to rename 12/20, I could do 12/20 and multiply the top and the bottom by 2 and get 24/40. Just like I could do 12/20 divided by 2, and I would get 6/10. So again, we've taken and we've renamed 12/20 to 2 new names. It could be 24/40. It could be 6/10. Those are all correct. They all mean the same thing. The shaded area is the same. So for this, you would shade in 6 out of 10. For this one, you would shade 24 out of 40. And for our original fraction, you would have shaded 12 out of 20. Alright, we're finally going to get there. Next. Alright, So what we're going to be doing basically is we're going to be taking 12/20ths and we're going to give it a specific name. This name is going to be in simplest form. And what that means is when the numerator and the denominator have no common factor other than the number 1. Now I know right now that sounds like a bunch of blah-blah-blah, but it will make sense in just a moment. If I look at the number 12, and I'm going to put it over here, what are some factors of 12? We could do 2 times 6, right? We could do 3 times 4. We could do 1 times 12. Okay. Now let's look at factors of 20. Now you don't have to do this every time. I'm going to show you a simple way to do this, but just so you understand what I'm talking about. I could do 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. All right, now when you look at the two sets, this one right here versus this one, what is the biggest, or what are the common numbers? Let's circle them. 2 is common, 4 is common, and that's it. So those two numbers can be used to make this in simplest form. Let's try using 2. When I divide the top and bottom by 2, I'm going to get 6 on the top, 10 on the bottom. Is there a number that is common between 6 and 10? Let's do that down here. I'll do it in red. Looking at the number 6 and looking at the number 10. We have 2 and 3, 1 and 6. How about 10? 2 and 5, 1 and 10. Is there a common factor? Sure, there's 2. Alright, so that means that this could be further divided by 2. When I divide them, I get 3 over 5. Alright, now in blue, let me talk about the factors of 3 and 5. 3 and 5. The only factors of 3 are 1 times 3, and the only factors are 1 times 5. So, what's common? 1. What's common here? 1. Now let's go back to our definition. When the numerator, meaning the top number, and the denominator, the bottom number, have no common factors other than 1, it's in simplest form. Look at this, right here. The only common factor is 1. So, our original fraction, 12/20ths, its simplest form is 3/5. Okay, I could have also used, going back to our original problem here, I could have used the common number of 4. So look what happens when I do that. So I'm going to erase this so you can see. I'm going to rewrite my fraction, which is 12/20ths. What if I divide it by 4? Divide by 4. This is 3. And this is 5. Isn't that the exact answer that we got before? So that's a little bit faster way to do it. If you use the bigger of the factors, we started off with 12/20ths and we ended up renaming our fraction. We didn't change the shaded area, we just simply gave it a new name. It is now renamed in its simplest form, meaning the top and bottom have no numbers that'll go into it except for 1. Alright, let's do a couple of examples. Alright, the fraction we're starting off now is 16 over 32. Now, if you didn't already know this, 16 will go into both those numbers. So we can figure out our factors off to the side. Okay, so you could figure out your factors of 16 and 32 and see what's common. Another way to do this problem is what I call whittling. If I look here and I see that this is 16 and this is 32, I notice that both numbers have something in common. That's right, they're both even. So that means they are divisible by what number? 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and divide. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 32 divided by 2 is 16. Now notice again, I'm noticing my two numbers are still even, so that means they're divisible by 2 again. So basically we're just going to keep breaking it down until it can't be broken down anymore. If I do that, I get 4. And if I do that, I get 8. Can I divide it? Yes, I can. I can divide it because those are two more even numbers. By 2, divided by 2, gives me 2 and 4. Look at that. I could divide it by 2 again. And I would get 1/2. So 16/32 is renamed as 1/2 because now there's no more numbers that can go into 1 or 2. All right. Now, if you wanted to do it the factor way, you just come up with the factors. 1 times 16. 2 times 8. 4 times 4. Okay? For 32, we have 1 times 32. We have 2 times 16. We have 4 times 8. And I think that's all the common factors we're going to have. All right, so if I were to circle the common factors here, 1, so... All right, let's start with our fraction 16 over 32. We can do the factors of 16 and the factors of 32, and what's common is we could use those. Or the other way that I was going to suggest to you is doing what I call whittling. I noticed that 16 and 32 have something something in common. They're both even. So I could divide 16 by 2. If I do that, I'm going to get 8 over 16. What do I notice about now 8 and 16? You guessed it. Both those numbers are even. So that means they're divisible by 2. So I'm just going to keep dividing by 2 or a number that's common between the two numbers until I can't do that anymore. Ew, check this out. Both of these are even. So let's divide by 2. Divide by 2. I get 2 over 4. I can still divide. 2 will go into both of these numbers still, giving me 1/2. So 16 over 32 is the same as 1/2. So we've renamed it using much smaller numbers, but the shaded area did not change. Now let's take a look at your factors of 16. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. We have 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8. Now, with a red pen, let's circle all the ones in common. 1, 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 16, 16. I could use any one of those circled numbers to also rename this fraction to its simplest form. So if I have 16 over 32, I could use 16, I could use 8, I could use 4, I could use 2, which I used 2. I'm going to use 16, and look at that. If I do that, my answer on the top is 1, answer on the bottom is 2, so I got the exact same answer as what I got above, but in a lot less steps. So you figure out which way is best for you. Alright? And that's it. Make sure you get the notes. Make sure you answer the questions at the end, and we'll get lots of practice in class in case it's still a little sketchy for you. Happy New Year!